Hi, I'm Rob Eder, and this is DSN TV Executive Viewpoint Special Edition Countdown to TSE. I'm joined by National Association of Chain Drugstores President and CEO, Steve Anderson. Steve, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Rob.
Steve, in your remarks this morning, you referred to the challenge of inconsistency in government policy. Can you talk to our users a little bit more about what you meant by that?
Yeah, we're seeing this more and more, and I think it's this political environment that we find ourselves in. But I'll just give you a couple examples. We have made great strides at NACDS and within pharmacy generally in getting people to understand the concept of medication adherence and medication therapy management and how we can use those tools in order to reduce long-term costs. And usually when a piece of legislation moves through Congress, the Congressional Budget Office scores the bill to determine the cost of the bill as is, which is basically what we call a static method of scoring. We believe in a more dynamic method of scoring that allows the Congress to look at the long-term savings as an example of people using their medications to lead healthier lives and reduce healthcare costs on a long-term basis. At the same time, though, you have most recently the budget for fiscal year 2014 that came out from the Obama administration that had more reimbursement cuts, which actually hurt pharmacy. I mean, a great illustration is our board comes to town quite often. Last year we had a meeting on the top floor with the Deputy Secretary of Health and Human Services, a political employee who just loved pharmacy, said nothing but great things. We got on an elevator, went down to a couple floors down to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services and talked about the policies that they were doing that prevented pharmacy from doing the things that the Secretary wanted us to do. So it's an interesting dynamic. It's a great illustration of inconsistency of policy, but I guess that's the nature of the work that we do, and that's why people are members and companies are members of NACDS.
Steve, there's a lot of focus these days around the countdown to full implementation of PPACA. But NACDS took a pretty interesting position in all the health reform talks over the years. Can you talk to our viewers a little bit more about the position that NACDS took and why that was important?
Yeah, this healthcare bill, as it worked its way through Congress for several years, it was a highly contentious issue, as everybody will remember. There was a lot of political posturing, a lot of political positioning that came out as a result. And what we like to do at NACDS is engage in we determine advocacy as being the art of the possible. What can we achieve on behalf of the industry? And this bill was just absolutely massive. There were a lot of unintended consequences in the legislation, and as a result of that, we didn't take a position on the entire bill, but we worked very, very hard and quite successfully to include provisions that would help pharmacy generally, primarily in the area of reimbursement under the average manufacturer price under Medicaid, having enhancements in medication therapy management that we are now seeing more success in some other areas. So that was the position we took. I think it was a good one, and the way these bills are put together, they are literally cobbled together by a few congressional staff members who work for members of Congress, and it's generally pieces of legislation that have been out there for quite some time that all of a sudden finds himself in a rather comprehensive omnibus bill. And as a result, we didn't take a position on the entire issue, on the entire piece of legislation. But that was a conscious choice, and I think a very wise one as well.
Good. This morning, you talked a little bit about the first chairman of NACDS, F.J. Griffiths, pardon me, and you citing some words that he spoke at the first annual meeting, you called the months ahead no time for peaceful slumber. Looking ahead, what would you say would be the short list of policy issues that NACDS members really need to be laser focused on right now, and what do they need to be doing about it?
Well, we generally have the issues that we work on almost on a regular basis, and probably since the association was founded 80 years ago, having to do with reimbursement issues and the like, and we will continue to work on those issues. In the next couple of years, though, we're going to be second to no association in terms of helping our members and the industry generally work on the regulations and understand the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. And it goes back to our earlier comments about the inconsistency in policy. And the government seems to be, particularly the federal government, seems to be already behind the curve in terms of implementation of the overall bill. And generally what happens is they pass something, they find themselves in an election campaign like they did last year. They win the election and say, oh my God, now we got to go forward and implement this massive piece of legislation. And that's really what we're seeing right now. And I think that my biggest fear in the implementation of healthcare reform is that it is going to reinforce whether we're turning over this massive amount of our GDP to the government in terms of actually running healthcare in the country, and whether government is going to be up to the standards that the American people are going to expect and have experienced in the private aspect of healthcare in this new model. And we need to make sure that we are playing a major role for our members in helping them implement this rather massive, very complicated, and still uncertain law moving forward. And the way our government works, they pass these general issues and general bills without getting into the specifics. And where the rubber really meets the road is through the regulatory process. And that's where we play a very, very important role. And we have a lot of great experts on our staff, but also a lot of great experts with our member companies.
So, this is, obviously it's the 80th anniversary of NACDS, and just spoke a little bit about F.J. Griffiths, and you referred to him this morning in your comments. Fun question: if you could get in a time machine and go back 80 years, and have an hour out here at Cabana Row here and talk to F.J. Griffiths, what would you tell him, or what advice would you ask?
Well, I'd like to thank him. I mean, I think it's fascinating. I love association work for a lot of different reasons, but what I really like about it, and as I mentioned today, I read a lot of history, and I love history, and it's not just a musty recollection of what people have done in in the past, but really how they set the stage for future generations, whether in our country or in this case as it relates to our industry. And they had a vision. They realized that although chain drugstores were retailers, they were very unique retailers because they had the opportunity, even back then, if you look at the minutes of the meeting, they realized that they had the opportunity to help people lead healthier lives, improve the quality of life, and in many cases actually save lives. And we're seeing that even now. And it's fun to look back because the NACDS is comprised of a voluntary board who give of their time for the betterment of the industry. And at the same time, they're hoping it affects the bottom line of their company as well. But I think we are in our own historical time. And I think as a result of how we have built on their success, literally standing on the shoulders of giants, that we have people in our membership and on our board who are the giants that people 20 years from now will be at an NACDS annual meeting or an NACDS Total Store Expo and look back on this time. And I think because of implementation of the Affordable Care Act and what is happening in the marketplace itself in how our members are providing more advanced services and care to people than just primarily giving them products. As a drug, we're providing more service, that we're really building the history of where this fabulous industry is going to go. And I think it's really, really exciting. And as I say, our members are really historic figures because they are writing history now that people 20 or 30 years from now will be at an NACDS annual meeting saying, boy, they did some really interesting things back then. What are we going to do to further advance the industry? And that shows the progression from 80 years ago to now and then into the future of how a trade association and its membership can build an industry. And to me, that is what this country is all about. Do it through the private sector, but working with government in partnership in order to improve the lives of the American people.
TSC, the planning of this event, Steve, has spanned the tenures of 4 chairmen, Larry Merlo, Bob Loeffler, Greg Wasson, and now Bob Narveson. Talk about your thoughts and what you're feeling now that all of the planning and development, it's all coming to fruition.
Yeah, they've talked about this at the board level at NACDS for quite some time. You know, we had 3 meetings. We had the Marketplace Conference, we had the Supply Chain and Logistics Conference, and we had the Pharmacy and Technology Conference. And there had been thought of what we needed to do with the meetings in order to keep improving them so they add value to the industry, both chains and associate members, so they will come and be able to do business. And we talked about it for quite some time. And I think in a rather bold move, our board decided, let's do it. And we decided to consolidate all the meetings into a total store expo, but to create a whole new product that really I think knocks down the walls of front end and pharmacy. You know, we're trying to knock down walls at NACDS, both literally and figuratively in a lot of different areas. And it's really exciting in how this has been endorsed. I mean, at this point, we're expecting a very, very successful show. It's going to be the size of about 9.5 to 10 football fields, and it has allowed companies to get together. As an example, associate members who might be in pharmacy and OTC, to get together and say, how are they going to bring their products to market that will enhance the entire store? And everybody's looking for effectiveness and efficiencies. There's some people that think that a lot of associations have too many meetings. And we wanted to be responsive to the member wishes to produce a new product that I think is going to be very, very dynamic, particularly with an growing international focus that I think what we're seeing in this industry. Manufacturers have been there for quite some time, but the chain aspect of our membership are going in that direction as well. And what we can learn from each other, and what can we, in terms of a knowledge base or wisdom in the capital that we have, the intellectual capital, and how we can export that to enhance pharmacy and our industry on a worldwide basis. And that's where it's going. And I think that's really exciting of one of the aspects of the Total Store Expo moving forward.
Yeah. Well, we're excited about it. You know, a Total Store Expo coming in August 2013. We're going to be there in Las Vegas. And you better believe 9 or 10 football fields, we're going to be wearing our walking shoes, and you better too. Steve, thanks very much for your time.
Great. Thank you very much, Rob. I appreciate all your help.
I'm Rob Eder. You keep watching DSN TV.